So we got a couple more topics. First of all, Grog, do you want to tell us about the LoupeDeck Live?
Lupe.
Lupe deck, yeah. So CK, shout out to CK, our bud. In his Discord, he posted a video about this. I first saw it through this link, and it was Gale Level on YouTube. He does like a lot of he's kind of like a Harris Heller light. He kind of like has videos on getting into Twitch and improving your setup, and he does like reviews for hardware and stuff. Um, but he had this video which is pretty good, and then it took me deeper into looking more into it. But there's a company called LoupeDeck, so it's LOUPE and then DECK. But they are already an extant company. They've made plenty of other pieces of hardware that are peripherals for really content creation and editing, skewing more so towards video and photo editing, where basically it's kind of like how Elgato has a Stream Deck. They have this multi-function, multi-button little panel that you can pre-program with macros or shortcuts to allow you to execute commands that are far more complicated than you'd be able to just by doing like sort of Shift S or like Alt whatever. Um, Basic keybinds. You can now do really complex stuff. Well, Loop Deck is that, but what it is previously was this way for if you're editing, it had physical dials. So in addition to having sort of programmable buttons the way a Stream Deck does, there's also dials that have haptic feedback where you can actually click and feel the clicks. And let's say you were doing like photo editing, you could say, I want to take this to like a 49% gradient. You could dial it in exactly without having to drag a slider. And it allows you to kind of like keep more eyes on the final product while you make tweaks. So if it was, adding a filter to something in After Effects, or if it was, editing in Adobe Premiere in terms of zooming in and out of your timeline, it was a way to kind of like speed up workflow. So what they did was they've come out with a new thing called LoopDeck Live, and it's specifically targeted at streamers slash content creators. The idea is it's not meant solely to be um, a rival to Stream Deck, which it is, but it also is meant to kind of be not just helping you with your workflow on stream, but also what you do off stream. So if you're doing YouTube edits or you're doing video stuff for your channel after the fact, those extra features and dials are there to kind of help you um, give a little more workability to your creative space that you just can't get with a mouse. And so what's interesting is you basically have a rectangle, you have a touch screen of 12 buttons. Um, the cool thing about it is it's a swipe. So that touch screen is unlike the Stream Deck where they're physical LED, like little mini screen buttons. This is a screen kind of like a tablet that's divided into a grid. You can actually just swipe pages. So you can swipe
Mm.
through pages. And then at the bottom, you have 6 buttons numbered 1 through 6. You've got um, 3 dials on one side, 3 dials on the other side. Those dials can be programmed to do anything. They both click in and out. And then they also, obviously turn up and turn down. So you can program functionality for both if you're turning it to the right, turning it to the left. You can do it on a gradient. So if it was like you could use it as a scroll to scroll through a list of something, you could use it like say it's a Spotify playlist. If you have it keyed to Spotify, you could just be twisting a dial and scrolling through a playlist of something and then like click in to select the track that you want. The buttons at the bottom are workspaces. So basically, you can set up to 6 workspaces where you press it, and then that's going to shift the entire focus of what's happening in the middle of the deck with those touch buttons. And then there's also these kind of like two small side screens in the middle that allow you to then see those can be interactive, but they're also usually giving like information on what the dials do. So like, you can program the details. So like you can, if you have a dial set to something, um, you know, if you turn the dial and it toggles something, it'll like read out what it's doing in this like little mini side screen. It's pretty cool.
It looks really cool.
So who's gonna be the first person to get a Warzone win using only that thing? They just map all their buttons there.
You probably could. I mean, so they have a back end that looks a lot like Stream Deck. So anyone who's used Stream Deck, you basically have a piece of software on your computer that has um, program specific like pre-programmed hotkeys where you basically can drag and drop. So if you have a Stream Deck now and you boot up the software, you can go to like the pane on the side and say, okay, I use OBS, and then these are all the hotkey pre-programmed functions for OBS. This is for a scene change. I want the scene change to be on that button. I'm going to drag and drop that function there, and boom. This does exactly the same. The LoupeDeck stuff does the exact same thing, but it also, just like with Stream Deck, allows you to put in. You can set in delays, so you can make it
Can
so
you
that
utilize the
a single push
dials
button.
for like volume control?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can do it for volume control. You could do it for anything. It doesn't have to be a volume. Like the dials need not necessarily be, I'm turning to the right, volume goes up, and turning to the left, volume goes down. Because at the end of the day, why would you need 6 volume control knobs?
Why wouldn't you?
Well, but you could. Yeah. I mean, if you had like, I'm thinking for
treble,
folks,
bass, all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. You could use them as separate EQ. You could set them up for separate EQs.
Yeah.
If you wanted
Voice
to be really granular,
changers or all sorts.
Mm-hmm. So it's one of
That's
those
what I'm
things
saying.
where
That's what I'm saying. This is like this is like a Stream Deck Go XLR combo.
kind of, yeah.
for less
Yeah, the price
So
point,
when are
it's
we getting
not
free
it's
ones?
not cheap. I
Need to get
actually
Yeah, hit us up. Hit us up,
ordered
LoupeDeck.
one.
LoupeDeck, hit us up.
So
Hey.
I'm excited to talk about it when it comes in. They're shipping September 28th.
Nice.
The price I think for EU is like 249 EU, and I think it's like it's 269 USD, and you said it was 229 pound.
Pounds.
So then I don't know. I'm excited. Basically, it is in the same price bracket as the 30 button Stream Deck. So as Humps has the 6 button, I know some of us have like the 15 button, and then there's like the 30 button. And basically, it's just the same device. It just keeps getting physically bigger, and you have more buttons. And for people who are maybe in chat that don't have a Stream Deck or don't know a lot about it, you have these pre-programmable buttons, but you're not limited just to, oh, I've only got 30 buttons. You can make folders. So you could have, if you wanted, 30 folders of stuff, and every folder has its own folders and so on. So you can have an infinite number of pages or like chunks of content partitioned out.
Yeah.
But you have to basically mentally memorize, okay, I have my top tier set of folders. I go into that one, and then I have to nest a subfolder, and that takes up a key, et cetera, et cetera. What's interesting about the LoupeDeck is you have workspaces. So you have 6 workspaces, and you could have workspaces within workspaces, but ideally you'd say, this is my
Holy shit.
well, the mail has arrived.
Monday.
Anyway,
No,
I will mute myself in a second. But it's interesting because you can tap like a single workspace key, and like then everything in the middle screen, because it's a touch screen, then is relegated to that. But because you can swipe between screens, you're not having to drill down layers to get into functionality. You can dive into a workspace, and that whole workspace now has the functionality of 7 dials. Each of those dials is also a button, and each of those dials has its own screen, with like a little bit relegated to each dial, and then like the middle bit is like just an infinite scrolling page of like stuff. And you can also make those pages, if you don't want to swipe through it, you can make them folders. So you could just tap one thing there and then go into another folder. So it seems like it's the same price point as the Stream Deck 30 button, but with a lot more functionality. But it's LoupeDeck isn't new as a company, but this is a new product for them, so it's probably not going to be without some foibles, I'm interested to kind of test it out.
Yeah. I'm curious. So, does anyone here not have a Stream Deck currently? No.
I do.
So yeah, we all run a Stream Deck at the moment.
Yeah.
So are you going to be, do you think, replacing your Stream Deck with this, or maybe trying to use them together in some way, or?
I'm going to be using them together because I run a dual stream setup. My plan, or my dual PC setup. I'm going to be moving the Stream Deck over to the gaming PC so that if there's any hotkey functionality I want with the gaming PC, I'm going to have that here right in front of me, whereas now it's kind of off to the side beneath the stream PC. And I'm going to
Gotcha.
have this thing, which is a little bit more robust. I'm going to give that over to the stream PC because I can then say change things like I have my mic and my camera and all that stuff running through that machine because that's going straight into OBS and I don't have to like port it over a network. I want to be able to have the most amount of functionality in terms of controlling like the audio for the channel as well as like musical playlists and stuff like that there. And then the existing one, I have the 15 button. It'll be nice because um, our buddy Vul like showed me this game Elite Dangerous. It's super cool, but it's super complex. And one of the things that you can do with it is like you can set up like a little set of hotkey commands for playing the game with the Stream Deck.
Gotcha.
But I can't do that if I'm moving it between two computers on the fly. So
Yeah.
I think I'll definitely still get use out of the one that I have. It's just that's going to be more of like a fun, time-saving kind of thing. I think I'm just really looking forward to the LoupeDeck for setting up like delays and multifunction programmability so that like I know that right now, I think Billy, you have yours set up, your Stream Deck set up, so like you press a button and like this program launches and it starts that scene and then it like I know
I
you've
did.
gone pretty deep. It did.
No.
It did.
I managed to get it back, but it's nowhere near as complex as it was. You
But
can
I- but you-
basically
you have really explored like multifunction hotkeys.
like to the point where it makes my OBS like lag like crazy.
That's
like there's so many like multi-functions going on, it just reams everything.
that's the interesting thing, I think, with particularly with Stream Deck. I can't speak for this new product, but like if you spend a little time to like really deep dive into it, you can do some amazing stuff with it. Like I'm slacking. I don't know how easy it is to show mine right now, but like half the buttons aren't even assigned. Like it's really pathetic. I have folders, but then I just have empty buttons, and I'm like on the front page and like of the thing. Like, it's a nightmare. I need to actually organize it. But if you spend a little time getting into it, like you can really do some cool things with this. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it when it arrives. I wonder if they'll be able to directly compete with Elgato because Elgato is such a huge name and covers so many brands. But maybe, like you say, they're not directly trying to compete, even though it is a sort of competitor. Yeah, I'm very curious to see kind of how this is received by the sort of streaming community.
One of the
Looking at it-
differences is that it seems to be that like some of the pre-program, like the drag and drop functionality, Elgato just is strictly given towards, Spotify and Streamlabs and OBS and other stream centric things like that. What this does a little differently too is in the back end where the software is concerned, it also has support for Adobe Premiere, for Adobe Audition, for Photoshop, for Illustrator. So like it's tapping into the API for those things with pre-programmed functions that you can then map onto the device, which if you're someone who does, let's say you're into doing less live content versus more edited and curated content for YouTube, this actually seems like a cool tool for someone who uses other non-stream related things to produce content for entertainment. So for someone who like does a little bit of live streaming but a lot of YouTubing, and spends a lot of time editing, I can see that those dials and whatnot for scrubbing through VODs and for zooming in on your timeline and snipping stuff like that would actually be really efficient in a different way, and Elgato just isn't doing that at all.
If you look at it, it looks 10 times better than what the Stream Deck is. And the reason why I say that is it looks a lot more polished. The Stream Deck, if you look at it, it looks very clunky, but it does the job that it's intended to do. I
That's what
haven't
she
like
said.
I was waiting for that. When you actually like obviously Grog brought this up right before the podcast, but I haven't really dived into it. But looking at it, it looks like it would be an actual rival to a lot of the products that are already well established. But I feel like if the bigger streamers don't get onto it and also promote it, no one's gonna buy it. And it's I think it's gonna be a real shame. I think there's a huge mentality in the streaming world, whereas if you see one of your favorite streamers get something new, I instantly need to have it, whether it
I'm
be a new
sure
mic.
Harris Heller's gonna have a video on this.
He probably will. But I think you see
100%.
until that happens, I feel like it's just going to be overlooked by a lot of people. And on the surface, it looks like, I think Humps, you said this, it looks like a Go XLR and a Stream Deck pretty much
Yeah.
combined in one, which I don't know anybody that's bought the Go XLR and not felt it in the pocket. It's an investment, to say the least.
But we're also seeing more of this because the Elgato literally brought out the Wave, which is kind of like a Go XLR light built into a microphone.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They're
We're
definitely
seeing
pushing the
companies
envelope.
trying to combine a lot of things into one piece of hardware, because I think that particularly for like maybe a newer streamer, I can imagine it being quite daunting to look at all this gear and equipment. Like, I'm still in the process of trying to move to a 2 PC setup, and I'm already stressed about trying to get it all working. You know, the idea of having one product that kind of does a bunch of stuff clearly is quite appealing, and I think that's what these companies are trying to push. And we're seeing it with some of these products, like this new Stream Deck, LoupeDeck, whatever, is clearly trying to add things, and then Elgato had the microphone with extra features built in. Yeah,
competition is good in this case
Yeah.
because it's going to breed innovation. LoupeDeck was there are other companies other than LoupeDeck who already cater towards individuals who do a lot of video editing, having these hardware peripherals that are meant to add new layers of functionality or new layers to speed up the content creation process for photo and video editing. That's a well-established thing right now, and that's already where they started. But the fact that now they're trying to get into and cater towards like the streaming crowd is really interesting, and I think it can only do good things because it means that Elgato can't just sit, on their haunches and say, "Hey, we're Elgato. We make stream decks. We sell this many units per year,
Yeah.
and because we're pushing numbers, like we're fine with that." They can't just sit and be content. It means that the next model of Stream Deck is going to have to do something a little different. It's going to have to offer something new. And if you think about it, the Stream Deck hasn't changed in 5 years,
Yeah.
more. Like
they just
they
made
released a
smaller
product.
and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, their their growth model was, hey, we've released this cool thing called a Stream Deck, and it has multifunction, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's got 6 buttons. And then like a year or two later, hey, we're coming at you with the brand new Stream Deck. It's got 15 buttons. And then next year, hey, Stream Deck 3, it's got 30 buttons. Like, is the next one gonna have 60 buttons?
I can't
Like,
wait
keyboard. It's just
till I can have a
keyboard
whole
next.
desk
Yeah.
that is just a Stream Deck.
Get your new Ducky Stream Deck.
Stream Ducky. Oh fuck. I would.
Fuck, genius.
I might buy a Stream Ducky.
100%.
Yeah. No, it's
Um,
interesting. You're right. It's
But
hopefully
they've done
gonna
nothing. They've done nothing to innovate. I think the Wave and the Wave Link software for their microphone, huge step in the right direction. And actually, I was having a long conversation with Aiden last night about how frustrated and disappointed I am that Elgato is not allowing that Wavelength software to be sold separate from the microphone. Because I know that I'm shifting gears here slightly, but apparently the Wavelength software is kind of like a perfect, improved, better UI driven version of like say Voicemeeter, which a lot of people use to kind of solve a lot of technical issues that they might have with like dual stream setups or if
Yup.
they're running multiple applications, but it's always a little buggy. But here's the thing, Wavelink is fucking amazing, and apparently it will support up to 8 microphones, 7 of which do not need to be the Wavelink. And apparently, after doing a little research, you can buy a Wave 1 for, it's still $150, which I'm not going to spend. But you could buy a Wave 1, plug it into your computer, set the input volume to 0, and then run what you can run your Rode mic, you could run your Blue Yeti, anything you want, even in their own help page for their for Elgato. It says that they will support any microphone with the Wavelink software. The catch is the computer has to detect the driver from the Wave microphone, and it has to be plugged in. So I actually tried to download the Wave software and set it up to see if I could do it, and you cannot get through the setup process unless it detects a Wave microphone.
Right.
Give me an hour and I'll get through that.
It's super clever.
I am the master.
It's super clever.
Guys, my computer crashed again.
It's on
I
fire.
don't know what I've done.
No.
But it's one of those things where it really surprises me that they just don't say, hey, here's a $40 license, use it with whatever you want. Like, just or 60 or 100. I mean, like, just sell. They have created an amazing piece of software, and I feel like Elgato is just a little short-sighted right now in terms of how they are choosing to get into the marketplace. It feels like they really want to just tie people into their ecosystem of products, because they kind of cover everything. They sell a green screen, they sell a key light, they sell, I mean, the only thing they don't sell right now is cameras, right? Because like everything else you need, they're selling
Yeah.
for streaming. They're selling the cam link for your camera. So I feel like they're holding themselves back just enough by one, not innovating the Stream Deck anymore. They build a product, it's successful. There's no reason to make it better. They just keep releasing bigger versions, and beyond the 30 button, where do you go? I think this is going to be a great thing, and I think LoupeDeck is going to give them a challenge that they need.
I want to be able to control OBS with my mind, so I can just think about changing scenes and it'll change scenes. Make that, Elgato. That's what I want.
It seems like the LoupeDeck doesn't just do
Connie
streaming.
wants magic.
Yes.
He does. But correct me if I'm wrong, but the LoupeDeck doesn't just do streaming, like purely OBS work. It seems like you could use it for that, switch a profile, and then use it for editing. Then you can switch a profile and then use it for a different program. It seems like it's got a lot more
That's what it's geared for.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it.
In the video, so there's a couple of press videos that they have, but there's a decent one that I can drop into the public Discord for Zero Strategy Podcast. We do have a Discord. The video is pretty good, but basically it shows how it's basically shows how, like, yes, as Cyber pointed out, it's not just for streaming. They have definitely made a point that you can create workspaces and tailor the functionality of those buttons and the touchscreen and the dials, all of which have haptic feedback. So you get a little vibration, when you interact with each one, that all of those can and are specifically focused on like the Adobe Suite and other programs, and you can set your own profiles. So if you have a program that you like, let's say if you use GIMP for photo editing, you could, I mean, if you have the time and the patience, just program it. Anything can be every program ever now already has hotkeys. Control P to print, Control S to save. Like, Spotify, you can even control with your Stream Deck to do volume up, volume down, to save a track, to save it to a specific playlist, to start a key playlist, or whatever it is. These programs already have their own functionality built in. This is just the thing that's allowing you to have a new way to physically interact with it beyond your mouse, and to do it at like the press of a single button. So I think that's pretty cool.